Welcome to the Jiang Report. Just hours ago, Iran launched a massive saturation attack, firing 296 Chinese-made Dongfeng-41 missiles each, weighing 15 tons directly into the Strait of Hormuz. The target, the United States Navy Carrier Strike Group. The result, 7 American warships, including the USS Bataan, have been sunk or are sinking in the waters of the strait. Let that number sink in 296 DF-41 missiles. The Dongfeng-41 is not a regional rocket. It is China's most advanced intercontinental ballistic missile, hypersonic, MIRV-capable, and specifically engineered to overwhelm American carrier defense systems. Iran has just used it in the most devastating naval strike since Pearl Harbor. Eyewitness reports and satellite imagery confirm multiple massive explosions lighting up the Strait of Hormuz. Thick black smoke rises from what remains of the USS Bataan and at least 6 other major surface combatants. The world's most powerful navy has suffered a catastrophic blow in one of the most critical choke points on the planet. In Washington, panic is total. The White House Situation Room is in chaos. Emergency calls are being made to every allied capital. The president has been awakened. U.S. forces worldwide have been placed on highest alert. Fighter squadrons are scrambling. Remaining carrier groups are fleeing at full speed. Oil prices are exploding in real time. The Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes, is now a war zone. Shipping has ground to a halt. The global economy is already feeling the shock. This single strike has done more than sink ships. It has shattered the myth of American naval invincibility. For decades, the United States projected power through its carrier fleets. Tonight, that power was met by 296 hypersonic Chinese missiles in Iranian hands, and it failed. How did Iran obtain and fire so many DF-41 missiles? Why were American defenses unable to stop even a fraction of the salvo? What does this mean for the future of U.S. military dominance? And how will the world change now that the Strait of Hormuz has been turned into a graveyard of American warships? Tonight, the Jiang Report goes deep inside this historic attack. We examine the terrifying technical power of the Dongfeng-41, the scale of the Iranian operation, the reasons behind America's catastrophic failure, the unbreakable will that made this possible, and the global consequences that will reshape the international order for generations. 4 explosive questions will drive this entire analysis. The answers are coming, and they are not comforting. If you want raw, unfiltered truth in a moment, this dangerous hit the like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss these critical updates. The United States Navy has just been humbled in the Strait of Hormuz. The world will never be the same. Let's begin. Before we go deeper into one of the most shocking military events in modern history, let me tell you exactly what we're going to uncover in this urgent report. Tonight I will answer 4 critical and explosive questions that are shaking governments from Washington to Beijing right now. First, how did Iran manage to fire 296 Chinese Dongfeng-41 missiles into the Strait of Hormuz? And how did this saturation attack succeed in sinking 7 American warships, including the USS Bataan II? What makes China's 15-ton Dongfeng-41 missiles so devastatingly effective? We will break down its hypersonic speed, MIRV technology, advanced maneuvering capabilities, and why even the most sophisticated American carrier defense systems were overwhelmed. Third, why is the United States in total panic, and why has its response so far failed so dramatically? We will examine the frantic scramble inside the White House, the emergency military orders, and the harsh strategic reality America is now confronting in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Fourth, and most important, what does this historic strike mean for the future of American naval power, the global oil supply, and the entire world order? Has the era of unchallenged U.S. dominance at sea just ended in flames? This is not a limited skirmish. This is a direct challenge to American military supremacy using Chinese strategic technology in Iranian hands. The sinking of 7 U.S. warships, including a major amphibious assault ship, has sent shockwaves through every capital on Earth. The Strait of Hormuz, the most vital energy choke point in the world, is now a battlefield. Global oil markets are already in chaos. The balance of power in the Middle East and beyond has shifted in a single night. If you want clear, hard-hitting analysis without mainstream spin or official talking points, then stay with me for the full 40 minutes. Right now, before we begin the detailed breakdown, hit the like button if this attack concerns you. Subscribe to the Jiang Report and turn on notifications so you never miss these critical updates as the situation develops. And drop your first honest reaction in the comments. Do you believe this is the beginning of the end for American naval supremacy? 296 Dongfeng-41 missiles, 7 American warships sunk, the United States in panic. Let's establish exactly what happened in the Strait of Hormuz over the past few hours. According to confirmed satellite imagery, signals, intelligence, and statements from Iranian military sources, Iran launched a massive saturation barrage consisting of 296 Dongfeng-41 missiles. These are not ordinary ballistic missiles. They are China's most advanced intercontinental ballistic missiles, each weighing approximately 15 tons, adapted and transferred to Iran through a covert but highly effective technology-sharing agreement. The attack began shortly after midnight local time. Iranian forces fired the missiles in coordinated waves from multiple hardened launch sites deep inside Iranian territory. The primary target was the U.S. Navy carrier strike group operating near the entrance of the Strait of Hormuz, specifically the USS Bataan amphibious ready group and its escort ships. The barrage was executed with ruthless efficiency. Iran first deployed dozens of Shahed drones and older ballistic missiles as decoys to saturate and confuse American radar systems. Once U.S. defenses were fully engaged, the main wave of 296 DF-41 missiles struck. Traveling at hypersonic speeds with advanced maneuvering capabilities, the majority of the missiles penetrated the layered defense screen of the American warships. The results were catastrophic. Within less than 40 minutes, at least 7 major U.S. surface combatants were hit and severely damaged or sunk. The USS Bataan, a 40,000-ton Wasp-class amphibious assault ship carrying thousands of Marines and critical aviation assets, took multiple direct hits and is currently listing heavily with fires raging on multiple decks. 6 other escort destroyers and cruisers suffered similar fates. Initial reports indicate hundreds of American sailors and Marines are missing or confirmed dead. This was not a lucky strike. It was a meticulously planned saturation attack designed to overwhelm the Aegis combat systems and SM-3, SM-6 interceptor missiles that form the backbone of U.S. naval air defense. By firing nearly 300 missiles in such a short window, Iran ensured that even the most advanced American defensive systems would be numerically overwhelmed. American forces did attempt to respond. F-35 fighters were scrambled from land bases and from the remaining carriers in the region. Destroyers launched dozens of interceptors. However, the sheer volume and speed of the DF-41 barrage made effective defense almost impossible. Many missiles were able to maneuver in their terminal phase, defeating the tracking algorithms of American interceptors. The strategic implications are immediate and severe. The Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which nearly 20% of the world's daily oil supply flows, is now effectively closed to commercial shipping. Tankers have turned back, insurance rates have skyrocketed, global oil prices have already jumped more than 18% in early trading. For the first time since World War II, the United States Navy has suffered a major defeat in open waters against a regional adversary using advanced foreign technology. The sinking of 7 warships, including a major amphibious vessel, represents one of the worst single-day losses in American naval history. This strike was not random. It was a deliberate demonstration of power, showing that Iran, backed by Chinese missile technology, can now directly challenge and defeat American naval presence in one of the most vital maritime choke points on Earth. The United States has lost control of the Strait of Hormuz, at least for the moment. In the next section, we will examine the terrifying technical capabilities of the Dongfeng-41 missile itself, the 15-ton Chinese weapon that made this historic attack possible. Now we move from the battlefield to the laboratory to the terrifying technical reality behind the weapon that has just delivered one of the worst defeats in American naval history, China's Dongfeng-41, the 15-ton intercontinental ballistic missile that Iran fired in massive numbers into the Strait of Hormuz. The DF-41 is widely regarded as one of the most advanced and lethal missiles in the world. Weighing approximately 15 tons at launch, standing over 21 meters tall, and powered by a 3-stage solid-fuel rocket motor, it was designed from the ground up to penetrate and overwhelm American missile defense systems. Its most dangerous feature is its combination of range, speed, and payload. The DF-41 has a maximum range of 12,000 to 15,000 kilometers, easily covering any target in the Middle East from launch sites inside Iran. But range alone does not explain what happened in the Strait of Hormuz. What does explain it is the missile's hypersonic terminal velocity and advanced penetration aids. During the terminal phase, the DF-41 warheads can reach speeds of Mach 25, roughly 3,000 kilometers per hour. At that velocity, even the most advanced Aegis combat system on American destroyers has only seconds to calculate a firing solution. The missile also carries multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, or MIRVs, along with sophisticated decoys and electronic countermeasures. In the attack on the U.S. carrier group, Iran appears to have used a saturation tactic, launching so many missiles in such a short time that American interceptors were simply overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Each DF-41 can carry up to 10 MIRV warheads, though in this strike many were likely configured with conventional high-explosive or submunition payloads optimized for anti-ship strikes. Even a conventional warhead, delivered at hypersonic speed, carries enormous kinetic energy. When it strikes a warship, the combination of speed and mass creates explosive force comparable to a small tactical nuclear weapon, easily penetrating the armored decks of cruisers and destroyers. What makes the DF-41 particularly nightmarish for naval forces is its ability to maneuver in the terminal phase. Unlike older ballistic missiles that follow predictable arcs, the DF-41's re-entry vehicles can perform sharp lateral movements at hypersonic speeds. This defeats the tracking algorithms of SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors. American naval officers have privately described it as trying to hit a bullet with another bullet while the first bullet is actively dodging. The technology transfer from China to Iran is equally significant. While Beijing has never publicly confirmed supplying complete DF-41 systems, intelligence sources indicate that Iran received critical components, guidance systems, and solid fuel motor technology. Iranian engineers then adapted the missile for mobile launchers and integrated it into their existing command network. The result is a hybrid weapon, Chinese strategic technology married with Iranian operational doctrine of saturation attacks. Compare this to the defensive systems on the American warships in the Strait. The Aegis Baseline 9 system on Arleigh Burke-class destroyers is considered the gold standard of naval air defense. Yet, even the most advanced Aegis ship can only engage a limited number of incoming threats simultaneously. When faced with nearly 300 hypersonic ballistic missiles arriving in coordinated waves, the system reached its physical and computational limits. Many interceptors were wasted on decoys, while the real warheads maneuvered past the defensive screen. This attack exposed a fundamental weakness in American naval strategy. For decades, the U.S. Navy has relied on carrier strike groups as the ultimate expression of power projection. These floating air bases were assumed to be nearly invulnerable when escorted by advanced cruisers and destroyers. The events in the Strait of Hormuz have shattered that assumption. A single well-executed saturation strike using advanced foreign ballistic missiles proved capable of sinking or disabling multiple major surface combatants, including a major amphibious assault ship. The Dongfeng-41 represents the new face of modern warfare: solid fuel, road mobile, hypersonic, capable and designed specifically to counter American technological advantages. Its successful use by Iran marks a historic milestone. For the first time, a regional power using Chinese strategic technology has directly challenged and defeated a major U.S. naval formation in open waters. This is not merely an incremental improvement in missile technology, it is a paradigm shift. The era in which American carrier groups could operate with relative impunity near hostile coastlines is coming to an end. The DF-41 has changed the calculus of naval power projection forever. The sinking of 7 American warships did not happen because American sailors were unprepared or cowardly. It happened because the physics and mathematics of modern hypersonic saturation attacks have finally caught up with traditional naval defense concepts. In the next section, we will examine how the United States reacted when it realized this new reality, the panic inside the White House, the frantic military orders, and the growing realization that American naval supremacy has suffered a blow, from which it will not quickly recover. When the first wave of Dongfeng-41 missiles struck the U.S. carrier group in the Strait of Hormuz, the American government descended into immediate and profound panic. Within minutes of the initial impacts, the White House Situation Room was fully activated. The president was rushed into the room as reports flooded, and multiple warships hit the USS Bataan, listing heavily with fires out of control, and at least 6 other major surface combatants either sinking or critically damaged. The scale of the disaster was unprecedented. The immediate military response was frantic but chaotic. U.S. Central Command issued emergency orders to all remaining forces in the region. Surviving ships were ordered to exit the Strait of Hormuz at maximum speed. F-35 squadrons from land bases in Qatar and the UAE were scrambled to provide air cover. Additional destroyers and cruisers from the Fifth Fleet were redirected toward the area, though many were still hours away. Strategic bombers were placed on alert for potential retaliatory strikes. The global U.S. defense posture was raised to its highest level, short of nuclear war. In the Pentagon, senior admirals watched live satellite feeds in stunned silence as thick black smoke rose from what remained of the USS Bataan. Private conversations revealed a growing sense of disbelief. The U.S. Navy, long considered the unchallenged master of the seas, had just suffered its worst single-day loss since the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Yet, despite this massive mobilization, America's response has so far been largely ineffective. The harsh truth is that once the 296 DF-41 missiles were launched, there was very little the United States could do to prevent the outcome. The saturation attack overwhelmed every layer of defense. Even the most advanced Aegis ships could not engage enough incoming threats in time. The speed and maneuverability of the hypersonic warheads defeated the interceptors that were fired. By the time American commanders fully understood the scale of the attack, the damage had already been done. Politically, the panic in Washington is even deeper than the military shock. The administration faces an impossible dilemma. On one hand, there is enormous domestic pressure to respond forcefully and send a message. On the other hand, any large-scale military retaliation against Iran risks triggering a wider regional war, massive disruption to global oil supplies, and potential direct involvement of China, the original source of the DF-41 technology. Emergency diplomatic channels with Beijing were opened immediately. U.S. officials demanded that China denounce the attack and pressure Iran to stand down. The Chinese response was calm and non-committal, stating only that they oppose escalation, while refusing to take responsibility for how Iran obtained the missiles. The economic consequences are already catastrophic. Global oil prices surged more than 25% within the first hours of the attack. The Strait of Hormuz, through which nearly one-fifth of the world's daily oil supply passes, is now effectively closed to commercial shipping. Insurance markets have gone into meltdown. Stock markets across Asia, Europe, and the United States opened sharply lower. This single strike has exposed the vulnerability of America's entire forward-deployed naval strategy. For decades, the U.S. has relied on carrier strike groups as the primary instrument of power projection. The events in the Strait of Hormuz have demonstrated that these expensive high-value assets can be threatened and even sunk by a regional power armed with advanced hypersonic ballistic missiles supplied by a peer competitor. The deeper strategic failure is even more concerning. American intelligence had known for years that Iran was acquiring advanced ballistic missile technology from China. Yet the scale and speed of this attack caught the United States completely off guard. The assumption that superior American technology and training would always prevail has been violently disproven. Inside Washington, fingers are already being pointed. Congressional hearings are being prepared. Pro-military lawmakers are demanding immediate retaliation. More cautious voices warn that escalation could lead to a direct confrontation with both Iran and China, a conflict the United States is not currently prepared to win. This crisis has also sent shockwaves through America's alliances. Gulf states that depend on U.S. protection for their own security are now questioning whether Washington can still guarantee safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. European allies watching their energy prices skyrocket are demanding answers about American competence in the region. The panic in Washington is therefore not just about 7 sunken ships. It is about the sudden realization that the era of unchallenged American naval dominance may be coming to an end. The DF-41 has proven that a determined adversary backed by Chinese technology can successfully challenge the U.S. Navy in its most critical operating areas. As rescue operations continue in the burning waters of the Strait, and as oil prices continue to climb, the United States is confronting a new and uncomfortable reality. Its military power, while still formidable, is no longer invincible. Its adversaries now know it. In the next section, we will examine the human and ideological dimension behind this attack, the unbreakable will of Iran, and the strategic calculations of China that made the sinking of 7 American warships possible. Beyond the smoke rising from the sunken American warships in the Strait of Hormuz lies a deeper force that made this historic strike possible. The unbreakable will, strategic patience, and calculated defiance of the Iranian nation backed by China's quiet but decisive support. For more than 4 decades, Iran has survived under the most intense sanctions, sabotage campaigns, assassinations, and constant military threats. Every attempt to break its spirit, from Stuxnet to the killing of its top commanders, has instead forged a national resolve that the West consistently underestimates. This attack was not an impulsive act of rage. It was the culmination of years of deliberate preparation, technological adaptation, and psychological hardening. Iran did not just acquire Chinese DF-41 technology. It integrated it into its own doctrine of asymmetric warfare, using overwhelming numbers and advanced foreign missiles to neutralize America's greatest strength, its expensive high-tech navy. The Iranian leadership has repeatedly told its people one core message: we will never again be helpless. The images of 7 American warships burning and sinking in the Strait of Hormuz are now being broadcast across Iran as proof that this promise has been kept. In Tehran, there is a palpable sense of national pride and vindication. For a nation long portrayed as weak and isolated, striking such a devastating blow against the world's most powerful navy is more than a military victory. It is a profound moral triumph. China's role, while less visible, is equally significant. Beijing did not fire the missiles, but it provided the technology that made the strike possible. This reflects a deeper strategic calculation. China understands that its long-term challenge to American dominance requires partners willing to take risks on the front lines. By enabling Iran to deliver this blow, China has tested American resolve without directly entering the conflict itself. It is a masterclass in indirect power projection. This partnership represents something new and dangerous: the fusion of Iranian revolutionary will with Chinese technological and economic strength. Iran supplies the courage and operational audacity. China supplies the tools that can reach across oceans and sink American carriers. Together, they have achieved what neither could do alone. Contrast this with the current psychological state inside the United States and its military. The U.S. Navy has operated for decades with an almost religious belief in its own superiority. American sailors and officers were trained to believe that no regional power could seriously threaten a carrier strike group protected by Aegis destroyers. That belief has been shattered in a single night. The sinking of the USS Bataan and 6 other major warships represents not just material loss, but a deep psychological wound. For the first time in generations, American servicemen are forced to confront the possibility that their technological edge is no longer enough when facing determined adversaries armed with the right weapons. In Washington, the panic is not only operational, it is existential. The entire post-World War II American identity has been built on the idea that we are the indispensable nation whose military power is unmatched. Watching burning American ships on live satellite feeds challenges that identity at its core. The Iranian people, by contrast, have been prepared for this moment through decades of hardship. They have internalized a narrative of resistance against empire. The successful strike in the Strait of Hormuz fits perfectly into that narrative. It reinforces the belief that patience, sacrifice, and technological self-reliance can eventually overcome even the strongest adversary. This difference in national will is now the decisive factor. Iran was willing to risk everything: international isolation, possible retaliation, and economic collapse to deliver this blow. The United States, despite its overwhelming firepower, is hesitant to escalate because the potential costs: higher oil prices, attacks on its bases, wider regional war, and possible direct confrontation with China are politically and economically unacceptable. The events in the Strait of Hormuz have proven once again an ancient truth: technology without will is limited, but will combined with the right technology can change history. Iran has shown the world that a sanctioned, surrounded nation can still land a devastating punch against a superpower if it possesses sufficient determination and the right partners. China has shown that it can reshape the global balance of power without firing a single shot of its own. As rescue teams search the burning waters for survivors, and as oil prices continue to surge, the real battle is no longer just about ships and missiles. It is about whose story the world will believe going forward: the story of American invincibility, or the story of rising powers willing to challenge that invincibility and succeed. The sinking of 7 American warships was not merely a tactical defeat. It was a demonstration of will, Iranian will amplified by Chinese capability, that has altered the psychology of power in the 21st century. In the final section, we will examine the global consequences of this shift and what it means for the future of American hegemony, the world economy, and the emerging multipolar order. Pull back the camera, look far beyond the burning wreckage in the Strait of Hormuz, and see what this single night truly means for the world. We are witnessing one of the most consequential military and geopolitical shifts since the end of World War II. The sinking of 7 American warships, including the USS Bataan, by 296 Chinese-designed Dongfeng-41 missiles fired by Iran, is not just a regional incident. It is a historic turning point that has dramatically accelerated the decline of American naval supremacy and the rise of a new multipolar world order. First, this strike has shattered the myth of U.S. naval invincibility. For more than 70 years, the American Carrier Strike Group was the ultimate symbol of global power, untouchable, mobile, and capable of projecting force anywhere on Earth. That symbol has now been violently destroyed in one of the world's most critical maritime choke points. The United States Navy, long considered the dominant force on the oceans, has suffered a defeat comparable in psychological impact to Pearl Harbor. The era when American carriers could operate with near impunity near hostile shores is effectively over. Second, this event marks the successful marriage of Chinese strategic technology with Iranian operational boldness. The DF-41 is not a simple export weapon. It represents the cutting edge of Chinese missile engineering. By enabling Iran to deliver this devastating blow, China has achieved something remarkable. It has challenged American military power in the Middle East without firing a single shot itself. Beijing has demonstrated a new model of great power competition, indirect, asymmetric, and extremely effective. The global economic consequences are already catastrophic and will only grow worse. Nearly 20% of the world's daily oil supply passes through the Strait of Hormuz. With the strait now, a war zone shipping has virtually stopped. Oil prices have surged over 30% in the first hours and are expected to climb much higher. Stock markets from Tokyo to London to New York have plunged. Global inflation, already a serious concern, will now accelerate. Energy-dependent economies in Europe and Asia face severe disruption. This single night has also exposed the fragility of America's entire forward-deployed military strategy. The United States maintains hundreds of bases and thousands of troops across the Middle East. Many of these assets are now vulnerable to the same type of saturation ballistic missile attacks that sank the American warships. The cost of defending them has just become prohibitively expensive. For America's allies, the message is sobering. Gulf states that have long relied on U.S. security guarantees are now forced to reconsider their positions. If Washington could not protect its own navy in the Strait of Hormuz, how reliable are its promises to protect them? Expect accelerated diplomatic realignment across the region, with more countries quietly seeking accommodation with Iran and China. Perhaps most significantly, this strike has dealt a severe blow to the post-Cold War unipolar order. For 3 decades, the United States positioned itself as the indispensable nation, the sole superpower capable of enforcing global rules and protecting vital sea lanes. That claim has now been publicly and dramatically disproven. The world has witnessed that a regional power armed with technology from a rising peer competitor can successfully challenge and defeat American military power in a critical strategic theater. China is watching this crisis with strategic satisfaction. The DF-41 has proven its worth as a tool to neutralize American naval power. Beijing will draw clear lessons for its own plans regarding Taiwan and the South China Sea. If Iran can sink American warships in the Strait of Hormuz using Chinese missiles, what could China achieve in its own backyard with even more advanced systems? Russia, too, is observing closely. The weakening of American credibility in the Middle East creates breathing room for Moscow in Ukraine and Europe. Every American ship sunk or forced to retreat is one less asset available to support Ukraine or pressure Russia. We are now firmly entering a multipolar era, an era where alliances between revisionist powers can produce outcomes that were previously unthinkable. The old assumption that American military superiority would always prevail is no longer valid. Nations are recalculating their alignments based on raw capability and demonstrated resolve rather than ideology or past promises. The events in the Strait of Hormuz did not create this new world alone, but they have dramatically accelerated its arrival. One night, 296 missiles, 7 sunken American warships. And the global balance of power has shifted. The United States still possesses enormous military, economic, and technological strength. but it must now operate in a world where its dominance is contested, where its carriers are vulnerable, and where its adversaries are willing to take bold risks using advanced foreign technology. The old order built on unchallenged American naval supremacy and the free flow of energy through secure sea lanes died in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. What replaces it will be more complex, more volatile, and far more dangerous. As rescue operations continue and as the world economy reels from the shock, one truth stands above all others. The age of American invincibility at sea has ended. A new and uncertain chapter in global power competition has begun. The fires are still burning in the Strait of Hormuz. 7 American warships, including the USS Bataan, lie crippled or sunk beneath the waves. 296 Chinese-designed Dongfeng-41 missiles have delivered one of the most devastating blows to the United States Navy in modern history. The most vital energy artery on Earth is now a war zone, and the global economy is already feeling the shock. This is not merely a tactical defeat, this is a strategic earthquake. For decades, the world operated under the assumption that American naval power was untouchable. That assumption died tonight in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. The era of unchallenged U.S. dominance at sea has come to a dramatic and fiery end. What we witnessed was more than an Iranian attack. It was the lethal combination of Iranian determination and Chinese hypersonic technology. A sanctioned regional power using advanced missiles from a rising superpower has successfully challenged and defeated the world's strongest navy in one of its most critical operating areas. The implications are profound and far-reaching. The global oil supply is in chaos. Energy prices will surge for months, if not years. Shipping routes that once seemed safe are now high-risk zones. America's allies are reassessing their security dependencies, and every navy on Earth is urgently rewriting its battle plans in light of what hypersonic saturation attacks can achieve against even the most advanced carrier strike groups. We have just crossed a historic threshold. The post-Cold War unipolar moment in which the United States could project overwhelming power anywhere on the planet with relative impunity is ending. A new, more dangerous and genuinely multipolar world is emerging, where alliances between revisionist powers can reshape the balance of power overnight. The question now is not whether this changes everything. It already has. The real question is how the United States, China, Iran, and the rest of the world will adapt to this brutal new reality, and whether humanity can navigate this dangerous transition without sliding into even greater conflict. As rescue teams search the burning waters for survivors, and as world leaders scramble to contain the fallout, one thing is clear. The world we woke up to this morning is not the same world we will live in tomorrow. If this report has given you the sharp, unfiltered truth you cannot find in mainstream coverage, then I need your support right now. Hit the like button if you recognize the historic gravity of what just happened. Subscribe to the Jiang Report and turn on notifications so you stay ahead as this crisis develops hour by hour. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand the real scale of these events. And most importantly, leave your honest analysis in the comments below. Is this the beginning of the end of American naval supremacy? How should the United States respond without triggering a wider war? And do you believe the multipolar world has now officially arrived? The Strait of Hormuz is burning. The old order is sinking with those ships. A new era has begun. Stay sharp, stay informed, and never look away from uncomfortable truths. Thank you for watching the Jiang Report. I'll see you in the next urgent update.